The 1970s created two different worlds within Black America. While some families scraped together every penny to keep the lights on, others lived in comfort that seemed like pure fantasy to those watching from the outside. The gap wasn't just about money, it was about dignity, possibility, and the kind of childhood memories you could carry without shame. These are 10 things that separated the haves from the have-nots in Black households during that transformative decade. Color television in the living room. A color television sitting in the living room was the ultimate status symbol that announced to everyone who walked through your door that this family had made it. While most Black households gathered around small black and white sets with rabbit ears wrapped in aluminum foil, wealthy families enjoyed the luxury of watching shows in full color on screens that seemed enormous by comparison. The difference wasn't just visual, it was psychological. Kids from wealthy families could see the Jeffersons, Good Times, and Saturday morning cartoons exactly as they were meant to be seen, with rich colors that made every character come alive. For children visiting these homes, the experience was magical, like stepping into a different dimension where entertainment felt more real and more vibrant. The color TV represented more than technology. It represented arrival, success, and the ability to provide your family with the very best that modern life had to offer. When neighbors gathered to watch special events or popular shows, wealthy families became the unofficial community centers, their living rooms filled with people marveling at the crystal-clear picture and brilliant colors. Central air conditioning throughout the entire house was a luxury that transformed summer from an endurance test into pure comfort. While poor families relied on box fans, open windows, and trips to air-conditioned stores for relief, wealthy Black families lived in climate-controlled environments that made every room a sanctuary from the brutal summer heat. Kids from these families didn't understand the ritual of sleeping on pallets in the living room because it was the coolest room in the house, or the strategy of taking cold showers just to drop body temperature before bed. Their homes maintained perfect comfort year-round, with thermostats that could be adjusted at will and central systems that hummed quietly in the background. For poor kids visiting these houses, the consistent cool air felt like stepping into a different world entirely, one where comfort was taken for granted, and summer heat never dictated where you could sleep or how you spent your time. The central air wasn't just about physical comfort, it was about the freedom to live without considering the weather, to focus on other aspects of life while poor families arranged their entire existence around staying cool. Having 2 cars in the driveway meant freedom, flexibility, and the ability to move through the world on your own terms. Wealthy Black families in the 1970s often owned a primary family car and a second vehicle, sometimes even a luxury model that served as a weekend cruiser or special occasion transportation. For poor families who depended on public transportation, walked everywhere, or shared a single unreliable vehicle among multiple family members, the sight of multiple cars represented ultimate independence. Kids from wealthy families took family road trips, went on spontaneous drives, and never had to plan their lives around bus schedules or ask neighbors for rides. The second car often sat pristine in the garage, washed and waxed regularly, representing not just transportation, but achievement and the ability to afford excess. When wealthy families pulled up to church or community events with their matching vehicles, it sent a clear message about their place in the social hierarchy and their ability to navigate the world without dependence on others. 4. Name brand clothes without checking price tags. Shopping for name brand clothes without checking price tags was a privilege that wealthy Black children experienced regularly, while poor kids learned to appreciate whatever was available. Rich families bought their children Levi's jeans, Nike sneakers, and the latest fashions from department stores, while poor families shopped sales, second-hand stores, and relied heavily on hand-me-downs. The difference was visible immediately. Wealthy kids wore clothes that fit properly, matched current trends, and bore the logos and labels that other children recognized and coveted. For poor kids, seeing classmates in fresh name-brand outfits was a daily reminder of economic disparity and the reality that some families had choices while others made do. Wealthy Black families could afford to dress their children for success, understanding that appearance mattered in a world that judged people quickly and harshly. The name-brand clothes weren't just about vanity, they were about giving children confidence, helping them fit in with their peers, and ensuring they never felt ashamed of how they looked when stepping into any social situation. 5. Fully stocked refrigerator and deep freezer. A fully stocked refrigerator and separate deep freezer meant wealthy families lived without the anxiety of running out of food or having to stretch meals until payday. These families had refrigerators filled with fresh fruits, vegetables, meats, and snacks, plus standalone freezers packed with additional provisions that could last for weeks. Poor families, by contrast, often had nearly empty refrigerators with creative combinations of leftovers, cheap staples, and whatever could be stretched to feed everyone. The psychological impact of food security cannot be overstated. Mine and the wealthy kids opened the refrigerator without worry, knowing there would always be something good to eat, while poor kids learned to ask permission before taking food and to make careful calculations about what could be consumed without affecting family meals. Wealthy families planned menus around preferences rather than prices, bought ingredients for complex recipes, and had the luxury of wasting food if something spoiled before it could be eaten. 6. Private bedrooms for children. Private bedrooms for children was a luxury that wealthy black families provided routinely while poor families struggled with overcrowding and shared sleeping spaces. Rich kids had their own rooms, their own beds, their own space to retreat to for privacy, homework, and personal time. These rooms were often decorated according to the child's preferences, with matching furniture sets, curtains, and personal belongings displayed proudly. Poor families typically had multiple children sharing bedrooms, sometimes sharing beds, with personal space being almost non-existent. The difference in development and psychological well-being was significant. Wealthy children learned independence, personal responsibility, and the value of private space, while poor children learned to navigate shared resources and communal living. Having a private bedroom meant having a sanctuary, a place to think, study, and grow without constant interruption or the need to negotiate space with siblings. 7. A telephone mounted on the kitchen wall or sitting on a dedicated phone table represented connection to the outside world and the ability to communicate freely. Wealthy black families had their own phone lines, could make calls without worrying about expense, and often had multiple extensions throughout the house. Poor families either had no phone at all or shared party lines with neighbors, limiting their ability to communicate privately or frequently. The telephone in wealthy homes rang regularly with social calls, business conversations, and coordination of family activities, while poor families used phones sparingly and primarily for emergencies or essential communications. Kids from wealthy families could call their friends, participate in lengthy conversations, and use the phone as a social tool, while poor kids learned that phone time was precious and had to be used carefully. 8. Eating dinner at restaurants on weekends. Eating dinner at restaurants on weekends or special occasions was a regular part of life for wealthy black families, while poor families considered restaurant meals special treats reserved for the most important celebrations. Rich families explored different cuisines, tried new restaurants, and used dining out as entertainment and family bonding time. They had favorite establishments where they were known by name, could order appetizers, desserts, and drinks without calculating costs, and tipped generously. For poor families, restaurant meals were carefully planned expenses, often limited to fast food on special occasions, with careful attention to prices and sharing of items to make the money stretch. The wealthy families' ease in restaurant settings, knowing how to order, understanding etiquette, feeling comfortable in upscale environments, prepared their children for success in professional and social situations later in life. 9. Summer vacations with travel to different states. Summer vacations that lasted for weeks and involved travel to different states or regions was how wealthy black families spent their children's breaks from school. These families packed cars with luggage, drove to beach resorts, visited relatives in distant cities, and created memories that lasted lifetimes. They stayed in hotels, ate at restaurants throughout their travels, visited amusement parks, and returned home with souvenirs and photographs. Poor families, by contrast, spent summers in their own neighborhoods, with trips limited to local parks, community swimming pools, or perhaps a day trip to nearby attractions if transportation and money allowed. The difference in perspective and experience was profound. Wealthy children developed confidence, cultural awareness, and a sense of possibility about what the world had to offer, while poor children learned to find joy in immediate surroundings and local opportunities. Music lessons, particularly piano, were investments in cultural refinement and personal development that wealthy black families prioritized for their children. These families owned pianos, paid for weekly lessons, bought sheet music, and encouraged their children to develop musical skills that were seen as marks of sophistication and achievement. The sound of piano practice filled wealthy homes, and children performed at recitals, church services, and family gatherings.
Poor families, while often musically gifted and culturally rich, couldn't afford instruments or formal lessons, relying instead on church choirs, school programs, or self-taught skills. The formal musical education provided to wealthy children opened doors to opportunities, scholarships, and social connections that extended far beyond the music itself, providing tools for success in academic, professional, and social environments. These differences weren't just about material possessions, they were about the kind of childhood memories that shaped adult perspectives, and the confidence to navigate a world that often judged quickly and harshly. Wealthy black families in the 1970s provided their children with security, opportunity, and preparation for success that poor families could only dream of achieving. The gap was real, significant, and lasting, creating distinct experiences that influenced how children saw themselves and their possibilities in the world. Which of these differences between rich and poor black families resonates most with your own memories? Drop a comment below sharing what you remember from your own childhood, hit that like button if this brought back memories, and subscribe so you never miss another journey into the experiences that shaped Black America.